Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you in the gallery on a Sunday morning. I'd like to acknowledge from the outset the prior occupation and enduring significance of this place, Kurilpa Point, to the traditional owners and descendants of the Turrbal and Jagera people, and offer our respects to elders past and present. Welcome to the Queensland Art Gallery, Gallery of Modern Art. It's the opening weekend of Tracey Moffatt Spirited in the gallery and on TV. It's a big show and book. Tracey, what have you done with the book? Oh, all right then.
It's in the green room.
Trust me, there's a publication, and I think we've been spruiking it on the screen. It consists of spirit landscapes, over 60 works, and the premiere of a brand new video work in 2 episodes called Art Calls, which we're very grateful for the assistance of the Australia Council for their support for that work. As part of Spirited, Tracey Moffatt has also selected works from our permanent collection, major works and lesser-known works, images by artists that really draw out a multitude of responses to the idea of connectivity between place and person, spirits, dreams, dreamings, and the supernatural. Forces many of us experience, believe in and practice, or might actively deny in our everyday lives. The exhibition opened on Friday night. It coincided with another important event, Lloyd Moffatt's 30th birthday. And it runs through summer as part of our huge lineup of major programming for Christmas and the New Year. It's in Gallery 1.3. I invite you to have a look after the presentation today, and it runs until 8th of February next year. Following today, this presentation, you've got an opportunity to have a quick bite to eat, and then a gallery tour, a private tour conducted by Tracey Moffatt and Ellie Buttrose, our Associate Curator of International Art, will take place through the gallery. Stick around for that. I'd like to introduce our guests. Tracey's arguably, I love that word, bugger it, you are, the most prominent Australian artist exhibiting nationally and internationally today. It's true. Her work's represented in some of the world's foremost collections, the Museum of Modern Art, the Museum of Contemporary Art Los Angeles and the Guggenheim, the Tate, the Moderna Museum in Stockholm, all of our state and national gallery collections, just to name a few. Tracey's established, it's so weird having you on stage and talking about you. You've established the kind of vast network that speaks of a really current, global and connected artist. And despite that, or perhaps because of it, Tracey has retained an irrepressible connection to her origins here in Queensland and a really deep interest in the ideas of place and memory. It's these qualities that resonate and inform her latest body of work. Tracey's got a long association with us at the Queensland Art Gallery, Gallery of Modern Art. Her work is regularly featured here. It was a really strong part of the 6th Asia Pacific Triennial of Contemporary Art in 2009, where we showed the Plantation series. And last month, as part of the fantastic Harvest project, when we showed her first Jobs series from 2008. We're delighted that through Spirited and Art Calls, we're able to present her most recent works, completed since Tracey's return to Australia following many years as a resident of New York, and for her to have made interventions from our own collection in such a way that adds rich, multiple layers of possibility to this project. Via the great will and generosity of Tracey and some of our patrons, Dr. Paul Eliadis and the Slankar family, every single work in this show has been gifted into the gallery's collection. Thank you, Tracey. Please make her welcome.
Thank you.
We're really delighted to be joined with Tracey in conversation today with her collaborators on the Art Calls project, Julie Pitts and Miles Blow. Miles and Julie have been together as a collaborative team over the last 18 years, and in 2001 they started their business Mules Film. Jules and Miles, Mules, nice, very cute. They've been awarded lots of prizes, numerous prizes for their stop motion works, and they've worked together with Tracey to animate Art Calls. Welcome to you both, thanks for coming. Please welcome our guests. Thank you. Here's something we prepared earlier. Could you roll the making of Art Calls, please?
Can the lights be down off? here we go. And so we are now making a little film to show how we made art calls here at Mules Film, Ipswich, Queensland. And that's Miles. And that is Julie over there. Hello, Julie.
Hello.
And what we did was we set up the camera in front of this green screen. And Miles, can you just explain real easy about...
Basically got a teleprompter set up here. We've got a ultra tiny computer monitor running RGB into the computer. So that's just a mirroring our iMac over there. Then we've got it reflecting up into this glass, which is out of a real teleprompter. So it's good, reflects what the monitor's seeing. Then we've got the 5D Mark III set up behind it, our SLR. Then we've got a webcam, sort of as close as we can get to the lens there.
Little tiny webcam
Tiny
camera.
webcam, yeah. And so that's running to Skype for the other people to see Tracey in the studio. And then we've got our mixer here, which we can hear Skype and we can hear Tracey and make sure all our sound's good.
So I sat here in this chair
Yeah.
and I could see the subject. And here we have John Mainwaring, who we Skyped. And Julie would also read out a few checklists before we would roll. And there is the list.
Check preferences in Skype.
Check.
Set up the webcam.
Check.
Check the CF card.
Check.
Green screen check.
Check.
Check lights.
Check.
And we had such fun, didn't we?
Very fun.
Bye, Julie.
Goodbye.
Bye, Miles.
Ta-ta.
Enjoying the rock and roll. We're ready to rock and roll.
John, how's the weather?
I was just saying to the others that, surprisingly hot April.
I know, isn't it?
Of the setup there as you're roll calling and queuing up with the crow in the background.
Yes.
And your briefcase, a toolkit. Nice touch.
Yes, from Bunnings.
So let's talk about the context of art calls within your practice. And the gallery's referred to this very recent work as being your first made-for-TV series. And to a point that's true. There's never been this attempt to reach a broader sort of mainstream audience via the agency of an artwork, which is really actually a number of things. It's an assemblage of performances, it's portraits, it's a talk show, it's a kind of reality TV format. But strictly speaking, you really started in the middle 80s working in and around televisual formats. There was the film clip for In Excess, The Messenger, and then you worked on some documentary projects for SBS. There was a three-part series, and then you shot stills for another documentary. But I guess the key difference is that although that end result was made for TV, you began with very different motivations, and probably we'd conflate them into the variance between documentary and artwork. What was the motivation behind art calls?
I want to answer it in a roundabout way, and I want to get to it. I'm going to take a while to get to it.
Sit back and relax.
No. The question was meant to be, how does art calls sit within Spirited, the show here at GOMA?
Let's do that as well.
All right, so I didn't know how to answer this until last night. After I had a party last night in my hotel room, and I wanted people to come who I had known for a long time, who had been in my life for a long time, because I needed the company. I wanted people who had known me and had seen me over the years. They'd seen the best of me and the worst of me. And I also wanted to invite people from QAGOMA who'd been great to work with, and some of the artists from Art Calls. The Abdullah brothers are here. Are they here today in the audience? Yeah. So I wanted them, I wanted QAGOMA, and I wanted old friends. So this is what it's about, and when everyone left, I knew the answer. Art Calls sits in the show like the show sits. It's Tracey Moffatt and her work with the others. So it's my work in the gallery, and I've placed other artists' works amongst my own. So the readings are really interesting. You get this interesting play. What I needed, and that's what Art Calls is, it's Tracey Moffatt and the others. I'm wanting, it's me, it's Tracey Moffatt wanting the company. So Spirit Landscapes is a body of work I produced over the last couple of years, but I felt I needed to put it with something else. And besides, this is not a commercial gallery. This is a museum. This is an contemporary art space with a great collection, so I was able to access it. Other artists who are dealing with similar themes, a spiritual attachment to country and place, and finding meaning in landscapes that are important to them. That's what I was looking for. I wanted to be with the other artists, and with Art Calls, I wanted to be with the other artists, and I wanted to work with other artists, Julian Miles. I needed the company. I need the company. That's the answer.
We're going to expand on that. Television's been a big part of your life, obviously, through childhood, but then when you became an artist and you got into art and film and the histories of both and pop culture, there are obvious references throughout your work. And that back catalogue emerges as a key context for Art Calls. Who are some of the big stars of television and some of the presenters you look back at now as people that caught your attention?
I've always loved a talk show. But early, and I love documentaries about art. I watch them all. And a very early one was Civilization, made by the BBC, BBC Two, with Sir Kenneth Clarke. He was made a knight after making the series. Oxford-trained scholar, art scholar, and the series explores the history of Western art. And he was wonderful. He straight up and down professor, telling it like it is. And it was shot beautifully. I think it was shot on 35mm. It was made in the late 60s, and it has been repeated on television for the last 40 years. Everywhere I go, it might turn up, you know. So it was a great influence on me. And the reason why it has stayed with me is that he didn't change himself. He didn't talk down to the audience. He talked as this great scholar, and that's what I like. And I didn't change myself for Art Calls. You come on as yourself, or a heightened version of myself. Another show, of course, was Shock of the New with Robert Hughes. It was made in the early 80s, I believe, yes. And to see Robert Hughes and his take on art and bringing his own readings to it.
These days TV seems really quite fragmented. It's that sort of old traditional network that are constantly seeking to reinvent themselves, but it's really still the exclusive domain of high-end and high-cost productions. And that raises the perennial issue of local content and the flood of overseas syndications. But then there's the really bursting part of the sector, that free airwave, community TV, grassroots broadcasts and online TV and DIY shows. We talk about TV, but really, does TV matter anymore?
I like to watch a good dose of telly. I mean, I like my telly.
We get addicted to.
But are we really talking about? Aren't we really talking about digital content for multiple platforms now? Is it more about reaching screens and mobiles and the web?
Well, the fact that the ABC have picked it up, picked up Art Calls, and they're going to show it on ABC Arts Online. It's not iView. You all know iView. This is like a new thing they're doing. It's new. It started in May, and it's all little clips, art clips, and you can access it internationally. So friends in New York can see Art Calls all over the world, and they're starting to. They're going to upload it November, about mid-November. So that's a great thing. So they liked it. I showed it to them. I pitched it to them. They liked it, but then they didn't go with it. And they said, "But you know what we want to do? We want to go with it. We're going to put it online." And I think online is the new telly.
Yeah.
They said the kids can watch it on their iPads. Anywhere.
Anytime.
That's right.
You guys managed to use some pretty, relatively easily sourced technologies. It's a much lower-fi technical setup. It was great to see in the making there that the space and conditions that you're working in, and it can't have been easy. And I mean, despite the seamless quality that we get here, it's just beautiful as an end product. Behind the scenes, what were some of the issues you had to grapple with? I mean, Skype isn't used that often for major productions, and scripting with auto cues and green screens. I mean, that's hardcore. How'd you go?
Yeah, we kind of just, I guess Trace wanted the eye contact with the Skype, so that's where the Skype was the main factor, and then we kind of worked out the way of the auto cue with it reflected, so her eye line was perfect, and then it was a matter of rehearsing with Tracey knows artists all over the world, of course, and camera technician people, and they were able to film at the other end. So Tracey's image was sort of bumped up to the top of like a laptop, and then they sort of shot over the top of the laptop.
Nice.
And then because we couldn't do the split, the auto cue set up over there, so we kind of just fluked it that way, and then we did test, didn't we, Trace?
Yeah. Can I say with Skype regularly when you just Skype, you're not looking at their eyes, you're looking like this at the screen. And I didn't want that, I wanted this. Right into the eye. And you could just hold the conversation. And I think that's why it worked. It's the eye level, we got the eye level right. But we had to rehearse it.
Yeah, the most difficult part was trying to get the other people that were filming at the other end to get it right. So there was lots of sort of back and forth and testing, and so that was the hardest matching it up, wasn't it, Tracy?
But it was like rolling live television. Like, let's roll it. We're going live, and a lot of many things could have gone wrong.
Oh yeah, with the internet. With
internet
Skype.
Drop out.
No, not only that, the next door neighbour's mowing or something.
Awesome.
You know, like that was the fear of the whole thing.
Crow distractions.
Or was there going to be a big argument down the road or something like that? You know, we were thinking,
Was
and
Ipswich.
We got away with
Sorry, I'm not dissing it. I love Ipswich.
we got away with it.
But there are like burnouts and...
There was only one night where it was a very late one, and there was a really bad storm went through, and it's only a tin shed. So we sort of had to work. We kept going. Tracey kept going through this horrible storm, and we had to work with the footage then to make sure we sort of got that.
But raining outside, but not in New York. You know.
Yeah.
Good for
Match it up.
continuity. Yeah. I read in your bio notes for Mule's film that you'd used up all your favours and finances from friends and family. You couldn't afford actors and crew. You moved into stop motion for very good reasons and across 8mm and 16mm films. So that's obviously why we get that beautiful sequencing. Those cutaways are so eloquently montaged together at the start of Art Calls. What was the... how did you work into that?
Well, I guess Tracey sort of knew what she wanted, because that's originally what we were hired for, wasn't it? Just to do the beginning.
I had storyboarded it.
Yeah,
that opening sequence.
Yeah, Tracey knew exactly what she wanted, and then it was a matter of just sort of assembling it as we went. We added new bits along the way, didn't we? And then And then we, of course, had the Alvin footage that we threw on the top, which was some old, we call it the Alvin footage, but it was the client's Super 8 roll that was totally abstract, bizarre shapes. And
It had been through the flood.
been through floods, so you just got these you couldn't see any other image. It was this bizarre. So we showed Tracey that and said, this will grunge it up, and so that we used a bit of that.
They're talking about the opening title sequence, which is all in black and white, and it was inspired by early Dada surrealist cinema of the 1920s. I wanted it to be just immediately just read that way, that my sisters or whoever who hadn't, was not familiar with the history of cinema could look at it and go, oh yes, she's doing one of those weird early black and white surrealist, weirdy, arty films. That it was instantly recognisable. And to dirty it up, to make it look old, they had all this great old footage that they borrowed from their clients. Because they have a business where they transfer Super 8 onto DVDs, so they sometimes take a little, keep a little of it.
That client never got that roll back, but we never do that any other time.
Was it an old fella who he films trains?
He was addicted to trains.
Yeah, he just filmed trains.
Yeah, it was this train, bizarre little roll, train. So we thought he won't notice the bizarre little roll.
So a lot of the time it gets really mouldy too. So all you're seeing is this unbelievable sort of footage moving through, and you can't see any images. It's just all. It would take you forever to try and do it yourself, and you couldn't do it digitally. It's just so random and beautiful.
Was chance and randomness something that you got out of the experience in widening your collaboration with Tracey? What did you get out of the experience?
Well, we I guess with our own work, we have to always work with mistakes because we make so many, and they're the magic little bits that actually make the work, I think, special, to be able to make the mistakes and then work with them. And it was lovely to see Tracey sort of flow with that as well, because some things didn't work and some things did, but she was always willing to sort of move around that. And very excited. Tracey was always so excited about, we'd get sort of midnight phone calls. I can't wait to film the lighthouse, We filmed it down at
Cleveland,
little kiddies' lighthouse, and there's Tracey sort of, in the middle of this kiddies' playground going up the lighthouse. Very personally, I got so much working with Tracey. She reminded me of that focus that we had sort of lost a little bit of doing a stop motion animation for 10 years. Our brains have sort of gone into that 3 second a day mode, and I think after 10 years that sort of slowed down, but seeing Tracey's focus and unbelievable focus on the work was so inspiring. And it's given us a big enthusiasm to get back to our 10-year film and actually finish it, because Tracey's about new work, get on to new work. So, it's exciting.
And we'd burn in the time code of each interview, and Tracey would go back and write down all the time codes. So she was just real intense, like every night.
You know what I liked about working with you both? You kind of techno heads. I don't mean that in a derogatory, mean way. But you still kind of don't know how to do anything. Or you don't say you can do it. This is what I like, you just find out how to do it.
And if we don't know...
Like the rigging, they're not arrogant and say, oh yeah, we'll just pull it off for you, we'll handle it. They don't know how to do it. And I like that. They're like real artists. They don't know how to do it until they start, and they just work it out. Like rigging up the little webcam camera and so forth. Okay, well, that plug's got to go there, and this is going to work. We'll make it work.
The spinning phone.
This is it. We're used to having to make things for our animation. If we wanted a motion control rig, we weren't going to pay $8,000 a day to hire it. It's like, let's go make one. So the backyard's got bike chains and bits of wood, and we make all our own stuff. So that was Miles' and inventiveness, sort of getting out there and, hammering nails and wood and adjusting everything.
And the soldering gun and putting it together.
There's nothing you kind of can't do if you get in there and just try.
Well, they've got that compound where they live, sheds full of
stuff.
Can I say what? You've got everything in the shed.
Robots.
They make robots. that fight. Like they'll turn a lawnmower into a mangling robot, and they go in these they're called robo-wars.
Yeah.
And they control it remotely.
It's not really arty, is it? But it's crafty.
They're like sculptures.
Yeah.
Like they're moving sculptures.
we paint them.
Julie made one. You made you put a bridal gown on her on your. Robot.
Well, mine. I make things out of my robot's made out of like objects. The last one I had was a wok turned upside down, and I put wedding lace on it, so it sort of scares the guys before they even start. But it had little eyes on it, so I could tell where it was going. So yeah.
And did it win?
I think it blew up.
Yeah.
Hopefully you got
we
that
never
bit on
win.
film too.
Yeah,
Tracey,
So they're in their own world, these two. Perfect. Perfect.
you travel, and Miles and Julie have alluded to the level of discipline that you bring to a project, and it's a pleasure at our side of the fence as well. I mean, you bring challenges that we endeavour to meet all the time, and we challenge you as well. It's a cut and thrust relationship. It's pointless in everyone standing around nodding.
Yeah.
There's a lot to give and take, but you bring a real commitment. You move places to make art. You find that if you sit at home in Sydney and you're distracted looking out the window, the most fabulous view from her apartment over Berries Bay, but you have to get out of there, don't you?
Yeah.
Where do you go?
You have to go to where the art can be made, and that must explain why I've never really had a studio in all my life, that I've always worked off the kitchen table. It is only until recently that I was offered the little attic at the Sydney College of Art. They'd given me a space, which I don't really, I go there one morning a week. No, you have to go where it is.
And that includes boarding houses with share bathrooms and...
Yeah, a motel room somewhere. And in this case, it was Ipswich.
But
Yeah.
Ipswich is great.
Yes.
It reveals a
Yes.
whole treasure trove of new contacts for you. I mean, you've got Jenna the hairdresser now.
Yes, yeah. I think it's the way to go for artists, that we can't really work in the big cities. There's nowhere to work. Rents are so expensive all over the world now. And it's the smaller towns that are just on the fringe of the big cities. I think that's where artists have to be now. The space to work, but you can run into town and get your prints done, get them printed at the lab, go home again. And I had a fantasy about a big old Queenslander house I could have as a studio, and there's tons of them out of Ipswich.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not expensive. Those ramshackle old wooden timber houses, perfect.
Tracey would leave sometimes our house and say, well, I'm off to find the studio now. Any requests? Because we were going to be, these were like little dreams we used to have, that
Yeah.
we were going to be caretakers of Tracey's studio. We didn't mind having the old house. Tracey was going to build herself a beautiful big new one out the back.
Chic.
My request totally was for fences for my dogs. As long as it's got fences, Tracey.
And I'd say a barn for filming in.
See, that's it. The space you have out in your backyard. You could never have that in New York. You couldn't build your robots in New York,
No, that's what you said, yeah.
Yeah, need a big area.
ripping apart your lawnmower and turning it into a robot. Or the wok. The wok.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
go back in the shed for a second. You were joking just recently that there's enough material there to make a feature film out of. And obviously, it's great that you were able to make the making of, and there's 2 episodes that we're screening in the gallery at the moment. But obviously there's a lot of stuff that hit the floor, unused, but nevertheless quite good content. I can't imagine the scene with Destiny Deacon taking one shot, and then...
Are you talking about the outtakes of art calls?
could be,
All the
yes.
stuff we didn't use?
Yes.
Oh, we can't show that.
Don't show it to us.
There
tell
were
us what
sex and
happened.
drug references.
Excellent. Do we need a rating for this? No, we don't.
The outtakes had those references.
But there's quite a few things going on there. Like, you don't get Franco on a good day, and you're 2 hours in, and it's like, oh, is this going to work?
I know. He wasn't feeling well, the artist from San Antonio, and so I could have accepted the interview. I was going to accept it, but then a week later he offered to do it again, the sweetheart. So he was feeling better, and so we rolled again, and we got a great interview. Wise and funny.
He's extraordinary. Yeah. Say you had an unlimited budget now, and Miles and Julie, you had spanking new, diabolically excellent technical racks and everything you need at your disposal. Who would you want to interview for
Oh,
episodes 3 to 8
Oh,
in the
boy.
first season?
The list, my list is
Yeah.
incredible. Some people from here, and I won't say who because I just think there are some extraordinary artists in Australia. Fashion people, and I'm thinking Paris, and I won't name names. And then just some older New York artists. And it's awful to say it because they're going to pass away, but I want the stories. I want the stories, and I'd love to get them now. I'd love to make some more episodes. I want to do it again. I want to roll again.
We hope you do.
Yeah.
There's, let's bring art calls into the exhibition itself and go back a little bit on that loop that you opened with. There's a really wonderful constellation of riffs and serendipitous or purposeful relationships between art calls and the new series of photo works. The first and probably the most unifying to me at least is a generosity of spirit that you bring to each of these projects. In the show you're working with yourself and others to illuminate their practice, but in doing so your own. But across the gallery you've made some really remarkable, really compelling opportunities to include the work of others, like you were saying. And there's this wider conversation that happens. Our director Chris Sains on Friday night during his opening remarks, he said that when you invite these new connections into the room and we, the audience, spend time with your arrangements, it allows us to see things with new eyes. I thought it was a beautiful line. Has coming back from New York City to Australia, putting yourself in situations that you really need to find and remove yourself to go to think and make, to isolate, to think about those places you grew up, where your family's got connections to. Are you seeing familiar places in your life with new eyes?
Yes and no. I left New York because I missed nature. And I'm not kidding. I missed nature. I missed beauty. And I did not consider Central Park nature. And I had to be back in it. So that's why I came home. And also because the world had changed. With technology, Skype and email, that in fact you could be anywhere in the world now. I email my art dealer in New York and it's like I'm around the corner. You know, I came back because technology allowed me to come back. The change, it was no more faxing. I started off with the fax machine. So I lost the thread. Say it again.
Familiarity, seeing things with new eyes.
Seeing things with new eyes, yes, but I didn't want to linger. I didn't need to linger to go back to my old suburb. I photographed it quickly. Bang, 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 and the memory, that's the wall I was bullied against. That's the street I walked to go to guitar lesson. There's the shop where I stole the Mars bar. Click, click, click. Get out of there.
I really want to unpack some of these resonances.
The same with Cherbourg, the Aboriginal mission where my family are from. I didn't look up family when I went. I went in for an hour and I got out. Because you know what it was? I didn't want anything in front of my eyes. My eyes were working. And I was looking for beauty, I was looking for prettiness. And I didn't need that in front of me. So that's it. Going in, click, click, and leaving.
Yeah. Let's do a little strand by strand on some of those series, because I think there's some really interesting differences but relationships that emerge. The selection of Eve Tangley's work to occupy the grouping of night spirits, that's a beautiful intersection with one of the doyens of surrealism, and his drawing of the well of the subconscious, those dreaming and night visions. And it connects with, obviously, your love of the surreal and Dada's cinema. It's that opening sequence to Art Calls is also a fluid, dream, Dada-esque, beautiful state. What are you framing for us and setting up for us when you create these relationships between your work and another artist's work?
So I reference other artists' work in the opening sequence of Art Calls as a sort of tribute, and but at the same time it's about myself communing, wanting communication, the telephone spinning, as if in a seance, the lighthouse, the message bottle going out to the sea. setting up that sort of dream sequence about wanting this communication and going into art calls where I'm really talking. But the ambience has changed. You make it fun, make it interesting. You know, you've got to keep people's attention for half an hour.
Without advertising. The Bridget Riley painting.
Yes.
With its strips of hot colour, cutting vertical slices all over effect. That painting by Riley references an ancient Egyptian tomb and its interior, this wonderful site that had been set up for someone else's afterlife. But it sits beautifully with the Suburban Landscape series that you were talking about before, and that resonance of the colour palette. And it's a kind of archaeological dig through your childhood backyard and their memories, isn't it?
Oh, that's nice. Hey, that's good.
Shall we
You
go
went
with
from
that?
Egypt to archaeology. Yeah, but listen to me. This is what I think about the Bridget Riley picture. I don't read it as Egypt.
Yeah.
I've read about her life, and she's one of my favourite artists. Her and Agnes Martin, the great minimalists of our time. Isn't it odd how artists go to what's not like their own work? I could never be that. I am not a minimalist, but I like the minimalism.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's about Cornwall and her childhood. It's called Big Blue, and I read about how during the war, Second World War, her sister and her mother escaped down to Cornwall to escape the bombing of London, and to have left grim London and gone to the ocean, to the sea, to the Big Blue. I think it's about Cornwall. I don't read it as Egypt. They say, oh, it's the blue skies of Egypt that she saw, but I see it as an earlier thing coming from her. That's how I read that work.
But you've also set up a really subtle exchange, not only between your work and Bridget Riley's, but when you think about it, the long view through the entire gallery is a conversation between one optical abstractionist, Bridget Riley, and probably Australia's greatest ever, right? Pintupi woman called Doreen Reid Nakamura, who painted for Papanatula.
Oh, what a painting.
Yeah.
That is, which is in the art call's living room. It's that beautiful, it looks like op art, but it's sandhills. It's three-dimensional.
It hovers, it vibrates.
And not overly lit. I noticed you didn't light it that bright. You kept it subdued, but it's still pulsing. It's pulsing.
We could do a... no, we won't. Can you tell us about Mount Gravatt East?
No.
Not even a little bit?
Not want, go back, not want, no.
Not want, go back.
It's not important. I don't want to locate my work. That the suburban images are everybody's suburbia. It's everybody's. And these images were read quite well in New York. I showed it in New York. And the kids from New Jersey were reading it as New Jersey or nondescript. It's just a nondescript suburbia.
It's a universality.
Oh, I guess, okay, I'll talk about, its distance. It was a long way to go. You left town and that long tram ride. I'm old enough to remember the trams in Brisbane.
It's your birthday soon as well.
Yes. So that chugging along, and the trip into town, past this precinct. You'd pass South Bank and it was all old warehouses. There was no GOMA here then. The journey, the in and out, I say that's where the dreaming started, when my imagination would go to other places, long trips and so forth. And to grow up in suburbia here in Brisbane, at the time it was very rural, bush everywhere.
Yeah.
You grew up in the Gap was full of bush. It still is. Snakes. You ran home through the bush to avoid the snakes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. It's like growing up in the countryside. Now it's considered an inner suburb, almost, with the motorway.
When you walk into the show, there's a really stunning visual roll off one end of the series, that first group, As I Lay Back on My Ancestral Land.
Yes.
There's that end work of yours with all its golden hues, that cloudburst in the sky, and your line of sight tumbles off the edge of that wall very easily onto a massive William Robinson work and his kind of almost sublime, kaleidoscopic, upside down, all over world. It's a really It's a nice connection.
Yeah.
And you're obviously fully aware of the sightlines that were emerging as we were designing that show.
Yeah.
And you've got connections happening all over the place, and some of which you weren't even aware of in the works.
No.
Simran Gill.
You know, it was scary to do it because I couldn't see it until it was up, and that was only 3 days ago that I got to see it and all the connections. Because of some of the artworks from the collection I only saw as JPEGs,
Yeah.
you know, because I wasn't allowed into the vaults, really. It's a lot of work. You've got to pull back a lot of work to get to it, you know. And that's why I couldn't, when I saw that first question, what is the connection between art calls and my show? And that the answer only came last night after the party when everyone had left. It was about wanting to be with others.
All of this speaks very obviously of inclusiveness, but also not really thinking through traditional boundaries in art. You're obviously aware of your own history and you're very respectful of other people's, but to me, this is a really rare moment. This is an opportunity where we get to see the genuine power of an exchange and that power of communicating and interpreting several histories to us, among us, between artists, between citizens of the world, as you were saying. There's a real translation that works. It's not geographically specific. It is uncommon to see an artist like yourself so willing to directly put yourself and that strategy into, say, a critical relationship with the idea of sole authorship. You're offering a collage of conversation as a unique voice, like with art calls, like with Spirit Landscape, the exhibition itself. But when you think about it, that can be seen probably as one of your enduring legacies through a whole back catalogue of other series, the inclusion of other voices alongside your own. It's a looping narrative structure that replicates over time. I'm going somewhere with this.
It's good. It's good.
I can't recall when you said it, Trace, but I did read that you're not really into taking pictures, but making them. You direct things, you produce them, and obviously that means you involve other people right along the way, whether it's the physical process or the conceptual process or the feedback loop that you have to get right. And you're known to seriously road test your stuff. Before it gets to a final cut, before your joy levels are at the right level, you're in conversations with people, and they're not soft targets, right? You go there and you put your work in front of some hardcore people and you go there with them. There's a terrific story when you showed your collaboration with Gary Hilberg, artist, to a very senior artist for her thoughts on it. Artist is an excellent, one of several in a series, a video montage work that Tracey did, like I said, with Gary Hilberg. So anyway, you're in New York City,
Yes.
and an invite comes to attend one of Louise Bourgeois'
Yes.
private Sunday salons.
Yes.
You've described it as terrifying. Of course, it's not just for a cup of tea, but you have to present yourself. Tell us about it.
She would have the salons on a Sunday, and you had to ring up and get yourself there, and you had to. She didn't let you just sit there and stare at her. You had to be a part of the conversation, and she would rip you to shreds.
And she
Go
had a
around the
brother.
room like, okay, you live in a shed and you make weird animation. Why do you do it? And if you didn't explain why, she'd just take you apart. Next, do it to you and do it to you.
Yeah.
Why do you work at GOMA? Well, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
What is your back,
Yeah.
And you'd just fall apart, and then she'd suddenly be your friend, and she's putting you together again. And someone talked about it as sculpting with people.
Yeah.
That she couldn't help herself. She had to rip you down and then put you back up together. And we all had to present our work. You couldn't just come by yourself. You'd bring your latest thing. You got to show it and everyone can comment on it. Everyone in the room. And I showed the artist montage, which is Hollywood movies of showing artists destroying their work from over the years. It just goes for 3 minutes, and I've got this techno music going on in the background, and she was watching it. And then she went, stop it, stop it, stop it. Made it stop, turned it off. And then she said to everyone, okay, so what do we think of it? Jean-Louis, her son, the hippie son, the friend with the braids.
What did he say?
He dissed it. And she turned up her nose at it and said she found the music monotonous. But I knew she kind of liked it, I could tell, because I knew that she was a great one for destroying her own work.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen documentaries where she topples one of her sculptures. And when it hits the floor, she has this big smile because she feels released. She goes, there it goes. The smashing of that sculpture. Anyway, and then she, okay, so they all dissed it, and then she said to me, okay, keep playing it. And I went, no, I'm not going to play it again. And then she liked me. Because I stood up to her, and she said, ooh, you were throwing a tantrum. She liked it. She liked it.
But she never stopped asking you what it's about. What is this about?
What is this? Yeah, she said, what is this? But then she wanted to see it again, all the smashing of the artworks. Yeah, anyway.
And you said it was about
I didn't answer her. No.
the torment of being an artist?
Oh, that's right, I did. I said it is about, this is about the torment of being an artist. And she said, it is not a torment to be an artist, it is a privilege.
Beautiful. For art calls, there were several private screenings, and we had the privilege of being at one of your parents' place for one of those, and some GOMA crew and some other artists. But I think you had an audience with Mary and Fred Chepsey.
Yes, down in Melbourne. See, listen, in this country, you got to go to Melbourne. If you're going to test something out, they're just so serious about art, and okay, that's
Unlike us.
no, but you have that film culture. You know, the cinephile. They take cinema. All the great writing about cinema is Melbourne. It's Melbourne. It's Melbourne. Right. So you go down there and invite your friends, but invite some real directors.
And what did Fred say?
And the Schepsies, and I just think he's our greatest director. He, well, it was a party night, and we'd had a drinky.
Yeah.
And what did he said? He's real Aussie. He's a male Aussie straight fella, and they're not too coming gushy forward. You're never going to get it out of anyone straight. You know. Gruff, very gruff. He said, mumbling. It's great. No, it's great. It's great. It's great. But let's see you. Bring things out of people. Don't just show it. Don't just show the Destiny Deacon joke, which is great. But let's see you ask for it. He was interested in seeing a manipulation. As a director, he wanted to see how other people did it, because that's all he ever does. Getting performances out of Meryl Streep. And who would think you would even need to manipulate Meryl Streep to get something out of her? But he talked about it, and he had to. He talked about the making of Plenty and the way you have to be with actors. Yes, you've got to work them.
You do.
Doesn't just come. And that boy from 6 Degrees of Separation, Will Smith, he didn't know what he was doing. Fred had to take him through every line. You know, this boy's playing the son of Sidney Poitier, isn't that the character? Who cottons on to these wealthy art lovers on the Upper East Side and so on, based on vaguely on a true story. Yeah, so that's what Fred wanted to see. And that's what we put back into art calls.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest laughs, where you're telling Destiny, encouraging her to...
Cajoling.
Trying to trick her into doing it.
To put it bluntly.
And Tracey really listened to the feedback, which I found really fascinating. Like, Tracey would come back with the feedback, and really we'd discuss that feedback. And I found that really fascinating as well, that then those things would sometimes kind of awaken you in some ways to what you're doing. Yeah. Because sometimes you don't know that.
You've got to have a test screening.
Yeah.
It's brutal, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of brutal, while we've got you, Tracey, we're going to do a final segment called Miss Moff's Top Tips. This is for young aspiring artists. This is for those who want an insight to being an artist. This is for other people interested in what motivates artists and how to get a sense of what success looks like. We opened with this idea that you're usually described as one of Australia's most successful artists. And you've made iconic images. But Tracey Moffatt, what does success look like to you?
It doesn't feel like success. It just feels like I must go on to the next body of work. that my mind never stops. So advice for youngsters, to try and find their own voice, to make mistakes. You can get it wrong, it's all right. Make it on nothing. These two don't have the big budgets. They're working out of the backyard shed and hammering it together. You know, they're making it work. Don't look for the big grant. Don't find your big lofts and think you've got to live in it and to be an artist. Work off your kitchen table. It's all right.
You've spoken before about the stage and age thing, about before you're an artist, when you study to be an artist, and the aftermath, what you do with that. And you said once, before you get serious about art, you should just run away from it.
Oh yeah, leave it alone. Go to art school, then go and, go and serve hamburgers at McDonald's if you want. Don't continue on. But if it's calling you back, it's calling you back. You know, it's like bugging you, it's nagging you. I don't want to be alone on a highway at night, photographing spirits. I was compelled to do it. You know, I'd much rather be sitting at home watching Project Runway. You know, I want the comfortable life, we do, but it's either nagging you or it's not nagging you. And you'll find out if you're an artist, if that nagging's going on. This inner voice, there's something inside telling you to get out on the highway at 3 in the morning.
Or the
terrified of hillbillies and truck drivers. Scared of the truckies. I'm going to pull over. Yeah. What's that film? What's the film?
Wolf Creek?
Yeah, Wolf Creek. That's what I was afraid of. John Jarrett.
So you know you're serious if you come back after a while, but you know there's a consistent thread there. To after all of that, you've obviously in your practice gone somewhere else. You've got out of Australia as a place to make art, and you've gone to ply your trade, probably in what you'd say was the toughest place to go and try and make it, New York.
It's terrible.
Why New York?
Love affair with the city. That's what it is. Loving the city, wanting to be in the city first and foremost. That's why. But then everything else comes later. If you're not going to enjoy the city, if you're not going to go out in New York, then don't go and live there. You've got to go out and you've got to love the city and get into mischief and see every show or not see every show if you're working. Go to all the bars. Go to Brooklyn, go to Harlem.
And don't just hook up with Aussies over there?
No, I was going to be careful about. I didn't want to, because Australians get a little thing about it.
All right,
but no, you hang out with New Yorkers. You know, if you're in New York, you hang out with the crowd, the locals.
New York has a particular, and perhaps Americans more generally have a particular ability to do criticism or take criticism. How do you think Australian artists take criticism generally?
Well, I don't even read it. You know, I don't want to be self-conscious. I don't read critical reaction to my work or personal or stories about me. I don't want to become self-aware. No, it makes you self-conscious, you know, and was it offered the technician here, we're recording this today and we'll give you a copy. No, thank you, but I don't want to see it. You know? Thanks very much, give me the DVD and it'll be put back on the shelf in amongst all the old copies of Interview magazine, where I keep everything. You
have that kind of tempestuous relationship with a few works and series too, don't you? You never want to see. You don't
want to relive it, or it's like the work is done, it's on to the next. And but you know, as artists have to revisit their old work and speak about it in forums like this. Yeah. Just like writers do, you know, talk about a book they'd written 20 years before, or you know, the great Martin Scorsese, you know, to talk again about Raging Bull. When did he make? You know, he has to talk about it again. But I guess you come to it with new eyes. You look again with new eyes.
Today's been centred a lot around celebrating the potential of the question. It's the basis of this interview. It's fundament to an artist's practice. It's what you did in art calls. And It's been especially about cajoling responses. So in that spirit, we've got a few minutes left, and we wonder if there are any questions that we can take from the audience members. Does anyone have a question? I think we've got a roving mic down here, Soph.
Yes. Hi.
You're on.
I was curious when you said when you went back home and you took pictures with nothing in front of your eyes, how does that affect you as a person going back in time? You didn't have the emotional content, and how does it affect the viewer of the picture if you're not having an emotional
Oh, no,
content?
the memories are there already, but my eye is working. As a photographer, the eye is working. I'm looking for something. You can't have anyone you know in front of you or talking in your ear about anything. Go alone. And that's all it is. Nothing, when I say nothing in front of the eye, it could be a person, a voice in the background or something. Diane Arbus going out at night to photograph the freaks, the so-called freaks, going out with that in mind. Ouija, the photographer who photographed the war, the crime scenes. You know, his work and the eye is working. That's all it is. It's the working eye.
Does that cause a difference in the viewer of the work, whether you're... No, because I'm then playing with the image afterwards. I'm not like a Bill Henson who can grasp light. He's in the tradition of the great photographers who can go out and see the light and handle it and work with it, and he's really technical and he can do it, he can do the landscape. I'm not like that. I'm going out to get it and then I'm putting stuff on it later. It's coming later. It's really just, the image is just the base for something to be worked, as in the Suburban series where I put the memory across in this font, in this stenciled font, like a scrim, a veil of memory.
Any other questions?
Some about art calls for Julie and Miles. I want them to talk.
Right then. We're right on time, and it's been something, at least for me, of a masterclass in talking to you guys, and I hope that's translated to our folks in attendance.
We've got cake for everyone. Cake.
I think, did the Oxleys bring
We've
cake?
got these cakes from the party last night that weren't touched, and we had them cut up into 100 pieces, and they're going to be at the cafe for you all. You want to come for cake? Yeah.
Prior to the tour
The
of
River
the show.
Cafe.
I think we should all thank Julie and Miles, and especially Tracey Moffatt.
Thank you.
Following cake at 1:30, join Tracey and Ellie Buttrose for a private tour of the exhibition. Thanks so much for coming. Good afternoon.
you.